Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to my show where it really is okay to not be okay. I'm Rae Bonney, a qualified counsellor, workplace mental health specialist, not to mention a very dedicated and oftentimes enthusiastically disruptive men's issues advocate. It's not every girl's dream job, but hey, remember, men also matter. Into the second week of March and the third show this year for What Does It Feel Like Being You Today, presenting every second Sunday of the month between 10:30am and 12 noon. I meet with guests from all over the world, sharing what it feels like being them and also recognising that it really is okay to not be okay. We just heard from the beautiful Michelle Ciccardo. She's looking divine today, by the way, a beautiful brown glittery theatrical outfit. She always looks amazing. But it was her first new show, Programma Italiana. How's that? I don't know how to translate that. I have no idea what that means. But she's replacing longtime presenter Nina Nicolato, who presented the Italian show and has dedicated her time and talent here at 3WBC for more than 20 years. And thank you, Nina. We really appreciate everything you've done here at the station, and all the best for you, and hope you're listening in. Now, there is so much talk about generations these days that I can barely keep up with the alphabet soup of age division. We have Gen Z, iGen or Centennials. They were born between 1996 and to be decided. The Millennials or Gen Y, born between 1977 and 1995. Gen X, that's me, born between 1965 and 1976. The Baby Boomers, born between 1946 and 1964. And finally, the Traditionalists, also known as the Silent Generation, born between 1945 and before. Now, this silent/traditional generation are typically very quiet, hard workers. As children, they were never to be seen nor heard, but my guest today is fresh out of this particular generation. However, there is not a skerrick of silence or traditional behaviour in this man's DNA. And if his parents were hoping for a kid to be seen and not heard, well, they had another thing coming. Not only did Ken Lyons dedicate his career to becoming a very hard-working pharmacist, he also turned his hand at many theatrical occupations, including being one of our much-loved long-time presenters here at 3WBC. Like Nina, 21 years, in fact, Ken has been with the station. Today we plan on getting very noisy about what it's felt like being Ken for almost 95 years, and recognising the importance and often unsung role of pharmacists within our community. We're also hearing from Gen Z recording artist Will Hearn. He's debuting his brand new song called Wild Brother. He's been working harder than the Silent Generation, by the sounds of it, for almost 3 years, figuring out how to get this track finished. Well, it's done and it's on Spotify. We'll play that later. So there's a long build up to what we're about to hear. And so I'm just going to say, drum roll, welcome to the show, Ken Lyons.
Well, thank you very much indeed. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
You might want to pull your microphone into your face, Ken.
Oh, I am.
Ken was mesmerised there. He's just sort of lolling back in his chair like a drunken sailor, listening to all of his accolades. What was that like, Ken?
Embarrassing.
Really? Which bit?
Well, I don't know. I think it. When you hear, I don't feel old, but when you say all those, times and things like that, then I must be.
Yeah, the long end of generations that has no end.
And the silent one, I like that.
Now, I also just wanted to, before we kick off the show and get into the program, I wanted to say to you and to your wife, Jill, happy wedding anniversary.
Yes, that's amazing, isn't it? Today. In 1949, which is 70 years ago, we got married. And unfortunately, she's no longer. But nevertheless, she's with me today in spirit.
I think she's with you every day, isn't she?
She is, yes. I've got to be very careful what I do and what I say because she's listening somewhere. 70
years today. Can you just give us a little idea what it felt like on your wedding day?
I was nervous, yeah. and excited.
Because of the wedding night?
I didn't think you were going to mention that. Yes, of course, like all wedding nights, of course. We had
went off with a bang, did it?
Yes, we had our first night at that wonderful hotel in Melbourne in the Spring Street. I'm trying to
Swing.
Windsor,
did you say
Windsor
you
Hotel.
said Swing Street? Then is that you're telling us something here, Ken?
No, I'm not telling you.
You shared your wedding night.
Yeah,
with many.
and it was at the
Windsor Hotel.
Windsor Hotel.
What a beautiful
where we
hotel.
had our wedding breakfast there.
Oh, very nice.
It was.
They did well out of you then, or out of your parents.
Well, yes, we're a lovely family, and I don't think any of them that were at that wedding are now alive. Oh. And that's the problem, when you grow old, you outlive your friends and your relatives.
Yes.
That's the sad side.
Well, yeah, it's not necessarily a problem that it's sad to see everyone go. And it doesn't look like you're going anywhere soon, so...
Not today. I've got a wedding on.
Your own.
That's it.
Actually, you've got lunch at my place next, so anything's possible. But today, I want to cover many, many things while I've got you here. And we only have an hour and a half. I think you and I could probably spend an entire marathon or a radiothon.
I'm sure we could.
Talking about things. But, most recently, the last couple of months, I've spent a lot of time at the pharmacy. And that's another story. But it helped me recognise the value of our local pharmacists and the actual impact that pharmacists have on our community in way of, giving extra support and extra care to customers. And I think, given that we've seen the recent development of pharmacy chains sort of over the last 20 years and not casting any aspersions on these chains, but I'm really curious to know, given that you're a pharmacist by trade and you've spent many, many years and across generations dispensing pharmacological care. Did I get that right?
Yeah, well, that's true. We did make everything in my time. We were what's known now as a compounding pharmacist. They have compounding pharmacies today where the pharmacist actually does make things, whereas today pharmacy generally is just stuff off the shelf. However, you've still got to know what the stuff is.
Yes.
So you can't just assume that whatever you're going to give somebody is the right things. It's to do with knowledge, really, of all the modern sophisticated drugs and medications of all types. And it's a 4-year course still. Pharmacy, a university degree now, Bachelor of Pharmacy. Or from then on you can go up to Master and Doctor.
Oh, okay.
So it's very, very, what's the word I'm trying to think of? It's very, very sophisticated.
Yes.
Profession today, and there's such a lot they have to learn.
Well, the origins of pharmacy extend back to the dawn of time, really.
Oh, absolutely. It's thousands and thousands of years.
Greek origin?
Pardon?
Greek origin, is that right?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure origin, but yeah, certainly. And the apothecary, of course, was the early pharmacist. And,
yes.
And before that, I think there was the one where they tried to turn base metals into gold.
Well, I read somewhere that some dude squeezed something out of a leaf and put it on something back in ancient times, and that's where it all started. So I don't know if that was a succulent or something like that. But
well, it all came from botanical sources.
Yes.
And, of course, even the common things like painkillers like aspirin was actually originally discovered off the bark of a tree.
Oh.
So, a lot of botanical. In fact, when I did pharmacy, and I did the pharmacy course, we did it.
I'm glad you did the pharmacy course.
Yeah, so am I, actually. And we did botany. Botany was one of the subjects. So we had to know all about plants, and we used to go to the botanical gardens and wander amongst the trees and flowers and learn what all those wonderful herbs were.
Wow. So back then when you did have your mortar and pestle and probably a bit more free rein, did you and your mates ever sort of bash together any sort of informal remedies for people?
Oh, yes, because we used to make our own mixtures up because our own knowledge allowed us to.
Because you couldn't do that now, could you?
No, I don't think they know how to now anyway, because they don't have the raw materials to do it with. You know, I remember in my final days working in pharmacy, we got a prescription for an ointment, not one that's made up off the shelf, but one that had to be made, and nobody in the pharmacy except me knew how to do it. So, you know, they couldn't make an ointment.
Wow.
And besides, even if they could, we didn't have the raw materials to do it with.
So what was that about? Did you produce it in the end?
No, we couldn't because we didn't have the raw contents that the doctor had written out. He's obviously one of the old school, and probably from another country, thinking that, that's an old.
So what happened to the person? Their leg ended up just falling off?
Probably died. No, I'm only joking.
Now, you told me once, I remember, that you made some little potion with ginger in it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I used to make up things for herbalists, and this particular one was contained powdered ginger and powdered rhubarb, and I can't remember a couple of other things thrown in for a herbalist, and he used to then sell it to his clients, which worked very well, apparently. You're only waiting for me to say how did it work.
I've got no idea what you're saying next, Ken.
He said that all these people needed, really, to cure whatever they were suffering from, was a good bowel action.
There you go. That's very polite, isn't it?
Yeah, so not what I told you earlier, was it? No. But anyway, it worked. He said it worked anyway, and he said they were much better after that.
Well, there you go, people. A bit of ginger and a bit of rhubarb will get you going.
That's it. It would. Well, good old rhubarb, stewed rhubarb.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And it is a form of laxative.
Yes.
Ginger's wonderful for the tummy.
Yes, I have ginger here in my bottle. This has got ginger and turmeric and chilli in my water.
Well, there you go.
Definitely helps me. But, you know, I just want to go back to this whole pharmacy thing. That, you know, my experience of pharmacy is that, you know, you go in and it's like a dispensary. You put your prescription in and you get your pills out and off you go. But there was this one particular day where I was in quite a bit of despair about what to do about my health. You know, my mental health is something that's, you know, reasonably challenging. However, I know how to manage that if I've had my whole lifetime to learn how to manage my mental health. But when it comes to my physical health, that's something that I've always taken for granted. So I've been pretty discombobulated trying to get my head around not feeling well. So I found myself at a pharmacist in Box Hill North pretty much with my head on the counter going, please help me. And the pharmacist proceeded to care for me. And she went to the time and the effort to work out what cocktail of medications I was on through the doctor and asking me what colour, what shape, you know, what was written on, because I can't, you know, I don't read anything. And she was able to deduce kind of what might be going on with me in the combination of drugs that I was taking that were causing the effects. I don't call them side effects, Ken, because any effect is an effect, isn't it?
True.
So I felt this level of care, and I went out of that pharmacist and I felt, wow, that was a really good experience, and not what I would expect from, say, you know, today's pharmacy setup.
Well, it's like nursing. It is a caring profession. I mean, we're there to help people. We're there to help sick people, mostly, and be of service to anyone that comes in with some sort of illness. One of the things, of course, people try to sidetrack the doctor and say, come into the chemist and
cheaper.
They'll diagnose whatever's the matter with you. That, of course, changed over the years, and now, we still, as pharmacists, we still do what we can and what knowledge we gain over experience, our own experiences. So, yeah, look, it's caring is one of the things about pharmacy that I loved.
Yes.
And in the good old days, of course, if somebody came in with something in their eye, we could sit them down and remove it.
What, their eye?
No, just the...
That would involve some surgery, wouldn't it?
Dust or so. No, it wasn't actually. I could tell you how we did it, but I won't. We used to have, one of the pharmacies I had, we had opposite a delicatessen, and they had one of those slicing machines.
Say that again.
Remember the old slicing machines?
Yeah, definitely.
And they were so dangerous, and often somebody come in with half a finger hanging off, So we'd tie it all up, and we knew it needed stitches, so we get it all
more
ready
like a
and
butcher
send them.
Than a pharmacist.
Ring the doctor and send them straight round, and they'd be looked after. But today, you see, you can't do anything like. I don't know whether they're still allowed to punch holes in the ears so you can get an earring in. That was another thing we used to do.
Of course, yes.
Do
you think it's to do with the height of the counters at the pharmacy, that the pharmacists actually can't get over the counter to get to you? Because they're very high, aren't they?
I don't know. I don't think mine were very high. But I think the thing is, it's always fear of infection and things like that, so that you would be taken to court, because you shouldn't be doing things like that. So now, very careful.
Yes.
They don't take risks.
Well, speaking of health, that's how we got in touch with each other. And you saying to me before, because you're a bit nervous about coming on my show, probably more nervous that you couldn't control freak the panel.
That's absolutely right.
But I had visited my local member of parliament, who probably didn't administer as great service as our local pharmacist. But, I'm always banging on about men's issues and what we can be doing better for men. And I went and visited him and asked him about this question about how we can better serve our men in our community, and he didn't have an answer for me. So I thought, well, the next best thing I can do is approach the local radio station. And I wrote to John Farmer, our station manager, and said, hey, I want to talk about men's issues on air. And he put me in contact with you because you're the health professional here at 3WBC. And so we did. My very first show was actually with you.
Oh, that's good. I can't remember the first show we did
together.
Thanks a
lot, Ken.
But
I can. It was great. It was memorable.
Oh, well,
I was great.
Well, of course you were.
I was a star.
And even still very great. And your issues, of course, are sometimes controversial, and that's always good. To be controversial, I think.
But I'm always right, which is the good thing.
I wasn't going to comment on that.
Now, that's a really good lead-in, because I remember everything, but you told me about a day.
That's a problem.
Yeah, I know. Like an elephant. Can't remember your name, but I remember what happened to you.
There he is, flapping.
We were talking about pharmacy a few years ago, and you told me about a particular day. I said, what was your best day in pharmacy? Expecting, you saved somebody's life, or, you mixed up an ointment that, saved the world. But no, it was something about a performer.
Oh, yes. Well, I had a pharmacy in the Victoria Hotel in Little Collins Street for some years, which was at the back of the Tivoli Theatre. And Tivoli, of course, was a vaudeville theatre where everybody was live.
Well, thank God they were alive. What, you didn't kill them?
Well, true. I could tell you some great stories.
Live X,
wonderful
that's triple X.
Yes.
Here we go again, back down that path.
And one day, a beautiful girl came running into the pharmacy and rushed in and hid behind the counter. And we thought, good heavens, who is it? And why would they be running in to hide? Well, it turns out it was a lovely lady named Sabrina. And I wonder whether the listeners, if they're old enough, would remember Sabrina, who was gorgeous. And she was always, if she was out anywhere, she'd be followed by a team of men that wanted to get to her and speak to her and meet her and so on. So she'd had enough that particular day, so she'd had enough. She got ahead of them, ran, came into the pharmacy in Little Collins Street and hid behind the counter. So after the men had waited for some time because she didn't come out and they couldn't see where she was, so they left. And then she came out and explained to us what was going on. And we became, really good friends after that. As a matter of fact, my brother took her out a couple of times, and she gave him her belt. Now, that doesn't sound really exciting, but the thing was...
It does, actually.
She only had an 18-inch waist and a 42-inch bust.
Whoa.
So she had that extraordinary figure, which made her quite famous. Anyway... she, as I say, we became good friends.
So how come you didn't? Were you already spoken for at the time?
Yes, very much so.
Oh, that's okay.
And so in latter years, I lost touch with her. She married a doctor. She lived in the United States. And the last I heard was that she did pass away. She was in her 80s and she was very poor and very sick. And I was terribly, terribly sad about that because she was a gorgeous, beautiful lady in every way. And she was so nice and not spoilt with fame or anything like that. So if you remember Sabrina, that's her story.
Yeah, no, I think it's when we reflect back on, youth and, beauty and what's perceived as beauty and these moments, it can feel very sad when somebody's not with us or didn't prosper as well as we thought. And, I'm always very mindful of moments and to really stay in a moment and appreciate it, because one thing you can be sure of is another moment will present itself. But unless you appreciate the one that you're in, you're most likely going to miss the next one. And I was reminded of this on Thursday when I had a fairly serious doctor's appointment in Box Hill, and the result was pretty good. I'm kind of talking a lot about my health here on the show today. Anyway, I'd finished my appointment and I was getting into the lift and I had my mobile phone in my hand. Now, my mobile phone, whilst it isn't my life, it is my connection to my clients who are quite often in very compromising positions and do need to speak to me. As I was in the lift, there was a little old lady on a walking frame and her granddaughter. And they were getting out of the lift and I helped the old lady get out of the lift, and she was very, very frail. And as I did this, my phone slipped out of my hand. Now, everyone knows that tiny crack in a lift. My phone straight down the hole.
Goodness.
6 flights it was, and we all looked at this happening and we all said, did that actually happen? And we agreed that it did because we all saw it with our 6 eyes. And, of course, these people were so distressed on my behalf that this had occurred. And in my mind, I thought, Rae, just stay in the moment. And I said, well, I'm here with you and I'm having a chat and you're experiencing this with me. This has never happened to me in my life. So that's a moment. And I said, look, the next thing I'm going to do is going to go back to the surgery that I was at and I'm going to find out who the building manager is. So I did that. And so the receptionist typed in 1 million pieces into her computer and came up with the building manager's number. She wrote it on a piece of paper and gave it to me and said, call the building manager. I said, I don't have a phone. It's in the basement somewhere. Then she got it. So then I said, okay, well, what I need to do next is I need to get to a meeting in Chapel Street. Now, Chapel Street, for those of you who are listening in on the other side of the world, is probably about a 40-minute drive from where I was at. So I hopped in my car thinking I'm going to stay in this moment. And the next thing that happened to me while I was in the moment, so I wasn't stressing, but I turned on my radio to 94.1 FM, 3WBC, and who did I hear? Ken Lyons and Babs and Michelle and Mike. So straight away, my moment changed to, wow, now I have an opportunity to enjoy my time. So I listened to your show for the time that took me to get to Chapel Street. And I got out of my car and went to my office and used the landline to phone the building manager, who did pick up the phone. And he said, wow, that sounds like a bit of a pickle here in love. And I said, you're right. And he said, well, we can't help you because we contract our lifts out to somebody else. So he gave me the number of the lift people. And I thought, that's another moment. So I phoned the lift people and they said, sorry, love, we can't really help you unless you give us $150 cash to come and collect your phone. And I thought, oh, well, it's probably fair enough because it is a call out. So I agreed to that. And I thought, in my mind, I knew that once I got back into my car that I could turn on my radio again and you would be there to take me all the way back to Box Hill to collect my phone. And you did. And I loved the show and I loved the music that you were playing. And there was a piece in it where you were talking about a song-a-sing writer. Do you remember that? When you got your words muddled up?
I don't actually remember it, no, but I believe you.
Michelle was laughing at you guys, saying something about, getting your words muddled. And but it was a really, really good show. And I thought the universe...
A song and sing writer, that's
yes.
right.
But the universe put you in my car with me. So it actually made that time, which was, I think it equated to almost 3 hours, but most of that time I spent with you. And when I did arrive back at the building at Box Hill, I saw the lift man and he handed me my phone. It had fallen 6 flights into 3 inches of water. Oh. And it was in perfect condition because my kids are great. When I bought my phone, Rose, my daughter, took my hand and she took me into JB Hi-Fi and she said, you were buying a life-proof cover for your phone, which is almost bulletproof. I said, oh, why would I need that? She goes, you know what you're like, Mum? No. And then when I was getting my phone set up, I phoned my son George and I said, hey, George, do I need to get phone insurance? And he said, absolutely. I said, why? I'm so good with my phone. He goes, you know what you're like. So I got phone insurance.
So your kids know you better than you do.
They do. But now I'm just going to give a bit of a shout out to Life Proof. Now, this is a phone cover that saved my phone 6 flights into 3 inches of water, not a scratch on it. So do yourself a favour, buy one. You can claim it on your tax.
I actually have never heard of it.
Yes. Yep. I think your phone was built in about 1995, so
more like 1895.
You've got push buttons still on your phone, haven't you?
Yes, of course.
But that was a very long-winded story to say thank you for providing me a moment in my life that was quite challenging logistically and also emotionally. And I got my phone back in one piece and got to listen to you guys and your wonderful show. So
but I think we could learn something from this, learn your attitude to the whole situation. I mean, you could have burst into tears and just forgotten about the phone and said, I'll go and buy another one. But you didn't. You took it calmly. And you worked it out slowly as you went through the process of getting it back.
Yes, but I recognised the moment and I found something in the moment as well, which was you.
Oh, I'm very pleased you did.
And Babs and Michelle and Mike, who and you did some movie reviews as well, which I loved. That was really cool. And you talked about Bohemian Rhapsody, which I loved that movie as well. And Abbott and Costello, you talked about the Ollie and the new movie about Abbott and Costello. You talked about that.
Well, I'm pleased that you appreciated what we did, and that was nice in itself. That's a compliment.
Yes. Well, another thing that you did is you played one of my favourite songs, and I don't want to get all morbid, but this is the song I want played at my funeral. Should that ever happen?
I'll make sure it's done for you.
But you played it. I thought, oh wow, that's it. That's just another sign as well.
Isn't that interesting? What people would like played at their funeral? I know what I'd like played at my funeral.
But this is about me.
The St Kilda Football Club song.
When the Saints, what is it? When the Saints come marching in.
Yeah, when the Saints go marching in.
What? Not the original song. You want the actual.
Well, the words are different, of course, but the song is the same.
It is, and the colours as well. Actually, speaking of football, before we go to this song, I was speaking at an event recently with Simon Madden, who was one of the greatest ruckmen back in the 80s and 90s, played for Essendon Football Club, and fabulous speaker as well, and he's agreed to come on my show. I think it's in June because I'm pretty booked out, but that's going to be a really great show because he's more than just the greatest ruckman. He is he's just a fabulous man all round. So,
true. Yes, true he is.
This Mamas and the Puppers, do you know them?
Of course I do. And you're going to talk about Mama Cass, are you?
That's right. And this song, Dream a Little Dream. Welcome back, everyone. The time is just 4 minutes past 11 and you're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC with Rae Bonney, joined by life legend Ken Lyons. Not only is he one of the glittering stars here at 3WBC, but he's performed many important roles in his almost 95 years, including being a pharmacist here and in the United Kingdom. Now,
That's right, yes, I did work in England for 5 years.
It was one of the first stories you ever told me, because I reckon I'm a great storyteller, but you trump me, and you got probably a couple of years on me, but I will never forget the time where you just so lackadaisically told me about the time when you went home and you said to Jill, let's move to England.
No, not let's. We are.
Oh, sorry.
No, I said, get ready, we're going to England.
And Jill, in her style, I mean, I've never met Jill, but I feel like I know her, and her style was like, okay, let's go.
That's exactly right. And I mean, we had the 4 children. The eldest is 19, or was 19, and the youngest was 9. So, so we packed up, and we even sold the house because we weren't sure how long we were going to be away, and we thought,
bugger it, just sell the house.
Yeah, that's it. And when I think what we got for it as against the values today, because that was 1969 that we actually
I was 1 year old at that stage. I could have gone with you.
You could have.
Would have been walking by then.
I'd rather you were a bit older than that, though.
Probably would have fared better.
But anyway, we did, and we had a wonderful time. 5 years I worked in pharmacy in London. Mostly in London.
I've never asked you this question, actually. Was there a vast difference between how they practice pharmacy in the UK then as opposed to Australia?
Absolutely. And this was very surprising to me because I thought they would be so far further advanced than we would be here because, pharmacy in London, in England, in the UK, had been going a lot longer than in Australia. But no. We were ahead of them. They were still actually handwriting labels. At least we had a typewriter.
I was going to say, did you have the Dymo machine or something?
And so really, they were behind us in many respects. But anyway, I learned a lot.
Yeah,
over there, and I met some wonderful people. And I worked in most of the underground stations, which was interesting too.
I didn't know that either.
Mostly in Tottenham Court Road, which was Goode Street underground, but it was above the ground. The pharmacy was on street level, but a lot of them were, What
was that like working underground? I have that question because I worked a lot with Etihad Stadium, now Marvel Stadium, and their offices are under the stadium, and the effects on people's mental health by not seeing daylight.
Didn't affect my mental health, I don't think. No, I enjoyed all. And then I did, I varied around because I worked for 5 chemists and all had different pharmacies.
At the one time?
No.
I could just see you scooting around the underground from one to the other.
As they took their holidays, I would fill in, and manage their pharmacies for them. And most of them had places in Spain, in the south,
holiday destinations.
Yes. So they always go over to their little holiday destination and have their holidays.
So were you a bit of an Australian celebrity amongst the pharmacy sector, I guess, in London?
A celebrity?
Well, you know.
I served a lot of celebrities, I know that.
But they love Australians, though, over there.
Oh, full of Australians in London in those days, in the 1970s. They were. They were travelling, and they still do, of course. Australians, anywhere in the world that you go today, you'll find an Aussie, no matter how out of the way a place is. There's always an Australian there somewhere.
We do love to travel, don't we?
We do, and should.
Well, you know, I think I have this theory that we live so far south of the rest of the world. Like you just painted that picture of, you know, these London pharmacists, they just pop over to their place in Spain. It's very easy to pop all over Europe. But when you live in Australia, it's not only a big financial investment, it's a big investment of time to get from, you know, Australia to anywhere. And I think we have that natural curiosity. And similar to your, how long were you on a boat for to get to England? Cause
about 5 weeks.
You couldn't afford Concorde back then, could you?
They didn't have Concorde.
Did they?
No, not from Australia to there. No.
Oh. What happened to Concorde? Like,
but people travelled by boat more in those days to get to somewhere, not to just cruise, but to go
Well, that
somewhere.
was the origins of cruising as well. It was a little bit before that, but people actually enjoying the experience. God knows why. 5
wonderful weeks on a boat.
Yeah.
And, you know, life changes. By the time you get to England, you are very excited. And we landed there the very time that snow was everywhere because it was Christmas time. A little bit after Christmas, and it was white Christmas, which is pretty rare these days in England.
Yeah.
So we drove to London, we hired a car, got off the boat, hired a car and drove to London. Had no idea where London was, but we just followed the street signs, you know, every now and then, London 50.
The Queen.
Or isn't it the cat that did that? What's the story, you know? Anyway, doesn't matter.
Puss in Boots?
Puss in Boots, something like that. But anyway, that was interesting, finding our way to London.
Yeah.
Which we did.
Wow. I didn't know that either.
There's a lot of stories there, but another time, I think.
Oh, definitely, because we're time is racing.
We're racing the clock, aren't
we? But those 5 years, and I know many of those stories that populate those 5 years. But one, I love the way that you and Jill colour in the world, and any spare space you have, you'll fill it with something. And you had a little bit of a side business going there where your kids were bringing home stray people, and you thought, why not commercialise that?
Well, it wasn't really commercialising it. It was more helping the young people that were travelling and getting ripped off in the various places. And so we'd take them in and feed them. And it was like living at home, because they had the run of the house, they had the television, which was coloured in those days, before us here, and Jill did the cooking, and sometimes we had, you know, maybe 20 people staying with us, which caused all sorts of interesting things.
Because you had to set up barracks, didn't you, really?
We did, and look, they all had a wonderful time. They became friends with each other, and it was a marvellous time for everybody, for us. And I think we charged them £7 a week in those days, which included their living, you know, their food and everything. So they were well off.
And how did the law feel about you conducting this little business?
Had the which?
The law.
What law? We didn't have any law.
I think there was a time, that was what I was alluding to, where you actually had to pack up probably 20 bunks and put them into a caravan.
You're really letting secrets out of the bag there, aren't you?
Oh, gosh, you will actually have the bobbies coming for you soon.
Yes, we will. They never stop looking for us. But we're here if you want us, 3WBC. Yeah, so anyway, that was another adventure. Yes.
But also during that time, which is testament to your and your family's incredible resilience. And, you know, we talk about resilience, you know, go and train for it, go and get more, you need more. But resilience truly is, you know, based on what experiences you have in life and what you do with them. And you had a pretty serious car accident.
I did. I had a car went into us on the driver's side. I had a broken femur, which is the biggest bone in your body. I was in hospital for 12 weeks in traction, and people who've had that sort of thing will know what I mean. You're hooked up on weights and pins and God knows what. But anyway, I survived. And Jill was sitting next to me in the car and got actually finished on the road, because it went into the driver's side and threw her out. I bounced off her and she bounced out. And Sandy, too, my daughter at the time, was with us, and the two of them were out on the road.
Yeah.
But they fortunately weren't seriously hurt, but they were certainly suffered shock and all the other things, grazing, bruising and everything else. So car accidents, if you're driving and you're listening right now, for heaven's sake,
don't look at your radio.
No.
Yeah, listen, but don't look.
That's it.
But I think quite often, in my world, always thinking about change. Change is something we can be certain of, but we can't plan for it. And, things like that, when you describe, 5 weeks in hospital, it's not like you get out after 5 weeks and, you're all physically ready to go. How did you manage as a family to continue to?
With difficulty, because, it's interesting you said about coming out of hospital after being there for all that time. The thing is, you've got to learn to walk again because all your muscles have shrunk up. And you really, I started off on crutches, then I got into a wheelchair, and then finally I was able to use a walking stick. And the surgeon said to me, you'll find that one leg will be slightly shorter than the other, so you'll always...
Is that why you keep on slipping off the panel today? I tell you, listeners, sorry, this is a pretty serious conversation, but I have to say, every few minutes, Ken's elbow just slips off the panel and he ends up almost under the panel.
Almost.
Yeah. No one would know, though. Great thing about radio.
That was not a nice period of time.
No.
But
was it enough to send you home?
No, it didn't. Nothing to do with being sent home. But I tell you one interesting thing about the hospital that I was in. The administration office there was the workhouse where Charles Dickens wrote Oliver Twist. In the story of Oliver Twist, it was a workhouse, and where all the boys stayed, orphans and everything, and that was the administration building.
There you go.
He used that as a part of his story.
Wow.
Of Oliver Twist, of which I was in as Mr. Brownlow once in the play. In
the play, which play? Not in the film.
Oliver Twist.
But which one?
Oliver. It was a musical.
Yeah, but where was that? At the Peridot Theatre?
No, it was at the Apex Theatre in Warburton, where I was living at the time.
Well, there you go. Beautiful segue into one of the next parts of your very illustrious career, because you and Jill, when you got bored of England and bored of pharmacy and a few other things, you bought a guest house in Warburton.
We did, along with my brother and sister-in-law.
Oh, they didn't do anything. You did all the work. Hopefully they're not listening.
Of course they're listening.
But that was kind of coinciding with your jam-making factory that you had in your garage as well, wasn't it?
Well, that's true.
Because there's no guest house that operates without homemade jam.
Oh, no, that was a different time. But yeah, I started the Yarra Valley Preserving Company.
Is it still going?
No.
All right.
No, it was a wonderful experience, but that's another story.
Yes. Well, I've got some of your jam at home, and it sits on my shelf in the kitchen as an ornament.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, of course, I only make jam these days for friends. I don't sell jam, but I make it these days just for friends and family. Well,
one of the beautiful things about Ken's jam making, and the reason why I use it as an ornament, is because of his label making. Is very humorous. And some people just take for granted that we'll say, here's jam and here's the ingredients, but Ken will always put a little naughty spin on it.
Oh, well, I do make it, more interesting than just a jam label.
Yeah, I think one read something like, if you don't like it, F you, kind of. All right.
Also, open before using is another thing. And for food, I can't remember some of the stuff I wrote, but anyway, it's just to make it interesting, a bit more interesting than just an ordinary label.
Yes, well, the guest house at Warburton, though, that's another great story of how you serve the community, and that's quite serious because there is a sense to this show around community, and shout out to 3WBC and all the presenters that support the station and all the listeners that support our station and sponsors, is that we do serve the community, and that's why we exist, is to present and provide this kind of entertainment. But you've been here for 21 years, and this isn't your first gig in radio, nor is it your first gig in the community, like being a pharmacist, having a guest house in Warburton, having a jam-making factory, and all the other many things that you do with Probus or Rotary. You've recently, I'm really segueing here, but you recently started Tai Chi.
Yes, I did. A couple of weeks now I'm doing Tai Chi, which is wonderful, but also it's quite intricate, so it's not all easy, but it uses muscles, I think, that I haven't used for a while.
Do you have to stand on one leg for a long time?
No.
Oh.
No, it's pretty good. It's a wonderful exercise for older people.
Well, but you said it was like 2 hours of Tai Chi, because that kind of doesn't sound like an old person's routine.
Oh, well, I mean, nothing to stop you walking over and sitting down.
Oh, okay.
I mean, nobody's forcing you to do it.
Mm.
So, but it's interesting, and you're being led. So, yeah, I, with all those things that I've done, I think I feel tired thinking about it.
Mm.
But when I look back, I think I'm so happy to have done what I have done over the years. And I've always wanted to do radio, and I started at 15 with 3DB, which is some of you might have remembered years ago. And I did a little bit with 3AK, which was the all-night station. I used to do all the ads for myself when I had the pharmacy, and that's what they let me do. And, things like that. And, of course, wonderful 21 years here at 3WBC, which I've really, really enjoyed. I've seen a lot come and go during that time. And we've just seen the last of our Italian program through Nina, and the wonderful Michelle has taken over, and her program today was great.
I know. I wasn't hoping. I was listening to, because I've not heard Michelle speak a lot of Italian before, but she's very, very, very natural, and I really enjoyed the fact that it's still an Italian show, but it's very different.
Of course, but that when Nina finished, I was so upset because that was part of my Sunday morning. Mm. The Italian, I loved the music. I loved Italy when I was there, and it's just beautiful to start the Sunday off with Italian music. And when it stopped, I thought, oh no, my whole life has got to turn around.
Yeah. But
now, of course, Michelle's taken over, and she is of Italian descent.
Yes.
So, and she's talking a little bit of Italian there this morning.
No, she's great. I really enjoyed listening to her. I mean, she's just a fantastic presenter anyway. She's one of my favourites, always has been. And also an integral part of 3WBC as well, because Michelle is also, she's community glue, I would call her. Michelle.
And what a singer she is too. What a beautiful voice.
Well, on your show the other day, I did hear that she had gone to an open mic night and she closed the show.
She did?
Yes, with a cappella.
I've closed a few shows too.
You're about to close this one if you don't watch out.
Anyway, that's, and it's great to have her on my show on a Thursday.
Yes. Oh, no, she's great. I must get her on my show.
Thursday at 12, if you want to listen.
Now, we didn't really cover all that much off.
Well, you were going to say hello to my grandson too, Tad.
Thank you for ruining that, Ken, because that was part of the next segment.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Have I ruined it?
Yes, you have.
Oh, dear.
Thank you.
I'll go home.
Yeah. But I did want to talk about somebody else before we just erase that from your memory, people. We're waiting for a bit of a break. But we were talking about the guest house in Warburton, which is another story all in itself. But given that we are getting a little challenged for time and still have a lot more to talk about, I want to talk about my friend Will Hearn. Now, Will, I met almost 5 years ago when I went on a diving adventure, and by that I mean diving in the Barrier Reef, where I acquired my PADI certification. And that involved living on a boat with 30 other people. And it so happened that out of 30 people, there were 3 Australians. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. It was amazing. Not just because of the diving, but just to see how people work together. 30 people on this really small boat where you're very, very vulnerable. You're vulnerable to the sea. You know, we're diving at night time. We're diving with sharks. You know, you're reliant on people to get your equipment on, and you're reliant on oxygen to keep yourself alive. So I met Will, and he was only 17 at the time, and I think his dad had sent him to sea to kind of sort him out. And we clicked straight away, and I think partly because George, my son, is the same age, and I felt somewhat connected there. But Will was a fantastic dive buddy, and we did connect on a number of things. But during that time, Will talked a lot about his art, and he was drawing at the time. Some pretty terrible stuff, but anyway. But music was also a big feature of his life, and we've remained not in close contact, but certainly in contact over those years. And he has recently, very, very recently, released his single, or his debut single, and it's on Spotify, which is really, really cool, which means he's kind of, well, I'd like to think that he's almost famous. But he's from a place called Yeppoon, and then that's about 38 kilometres east of Rockhampton in Queensland. So he's basically in the middle of nowhere. And his song...
Don't think the people of Yeppoon would like to hear that.
Yeah, Poon. But his song, Wild Brother, which has just been released, I've not had a chance to talk to Will because I did invite him to phone in on the show, but being Generation Z, he hasn't gotten back to me, but I will still play his song. But he had, whilst I knew him, his father sired another son. Do you say that?
Mm.
Is that how you say it?
Sounds more like a horse, really.
I was going to say a dog. I don't think he had access to the sporting drawer at the pharmacy. What is the sporting drawer at the pharmacy? You mentioned that before.
Yeah, well, we had that special drawer in the pharmacy called the sporting goods drawer.
Right.
It was really basically full of contraceptive things, all sorts of things.
Yes, well, there you go. But anyway, Will, he's produced some amazing music, and I'm very proud of him, what he's produced here, because I've had a listen and I really like it. So we're going to play that song right now, in fact. It is called Wild Brother, and it is by Will Hearn. We'll be right back.
Take me back to the wild brother. I used to be just like you. Show me how you cry when you wanna. I admire the way you do. Take me back to the wild brother. Your heart speaks it all out loud. I wanna run with you, brother. I hope you feel this sound. Take me back to the wild brother. I used to be just like you. Show me how you cry when you wanna. I admire the way you do. Take me back to the wild brother. Your heart speaks it all out loud. I wanna run with you, brother. I hope you feel this sound. I see it going now, but you're growing way too fast. I wanna be the one who can love you till you last. I
You're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC, and that was Will Hearn and his new single called Wild Brother. What do you think of that, Ken? You didn't listen to a word of it, did you? Because you were talking.
In the background, I thought it was beautiful.
It was quite soothing, and I thought it was well done, Will. Anyone that gets out there and has a crack, like Ken Lyons, lead from example. In fact, your divine grandson has chimed in with his excruciating disappointment about you letting the cat out of the bag. I'm actually going to read what he's written, because he writes like, do you know what he looks like you as well? When I look at his face, there are distinct similarities, but also the way he writes is beautiful, just like you. And he said, thanks for ruining that, Gramps. Talk about cat out of the bag. Gramps has never been one to sit on his hands and wait. Always head first, guns blazing, raw enthusiasm backed by incredible ability. I have myself and Lisa. This is his beautiful girlfriend who you met.
Yes, she's lovely,
Christmas
Lisa.
Time.
Beautiful.
You said to me, you were very impressed.
I am very impressed with Lisa. Yes, she's a lovely girl. And she's a geologist.
Get out. That's rocks, isn't it?
Yeah, goes around looking at rocks.
That sounds fascinating. No, there could be gold in those rocks, you know.
Oh, I hope.
How many geologists do you reckon find gold?
How many?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, plenty of gold around, but not easy to extract.
No.
But you go round in dead creeks, creeks that have dried up.
Like Sovereign Hill.
Oh, no, that's put there.
Is it? Is it?
No.
Oh.
Ballarat, is it? Ballarat,
yeah.
Yes. You can go panning, for gold in the creeks. Now, you get little bits and pieces.
Yes. I didn't know they planted in there. I thought that was real.
No,
I'll have to tell my kids. Poor kids. It's like telling them Santa's not real. But anyway, they are listening on live stream. That is Tad and Lisa with a Y. And he also said he never ceases to be amazed by Gramps. And he said that you are my inspiration.
Oh, isn't it lovely?
I think he wants all your money, actually.
Yes, I think he does. I'm just cancelling the cheque.
But you know what? We did get in contact, Tad and I, last year at the end of the year, and we still haven't connected up because there was a couple of things that we had in common that we were going to discuss. But he is a man of great talent himself. It's no surprise really being related to you. They are listening from Sydney, New South Wales. But last year, or 2018, that was last year, he started his own organisation. He was nominated as a finalist for the local business awards. He grew a veggie patch successfully for the first time. Now, a lot of people go, yeah, anyone can do that. They can't. He began building the LARP community in Sydney. And for those who don't know what LARP is, it's a live-action role-playing game where it's a role-playing thing where participants physically portray their characters. So get on. It's really, it looks like so much fun because you get to dress up in chainmail and you have like axes and swords
been doing
and
that.
stuff.
And as a little boy, he used to draw all those things, all the medieval costumes and things like that. He was an artist. He actually did an art course.
Well, you're an artist. You know where I'm going with that.
I'm not going anywhere with that.
But he was also invited to be on an SBS TV show pitching his idea of a multi-millionaire something. Sounds like that.
I'm waiting for him to become a multi-millionaire, actually. Well,
I think he's waiting for you, isn't he? For those holes in your backyard, you buried the cash.
Yeah, go for it, Tad.
Now, I want to ask him about this as well. Tad, you said you appeared on MKR, My Kitchen Rules. Were you a contestant or were you part of, were you doing LARP in the background where they maybe cooked a medieval feast or something? Anyway,
I didn't hear an answer, but I didn't know about that. So I will have to find out.
So there you go. That's now that's one example.
He's a very good cook, incidentally.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, and he actually took over from me. I think he's a good jam maker as well. Ah,
right. Look, here he is. He's just chimed in. He was a guest on the judging panel of a medieval feast. I got it. Bingo. See, I'm psycho. Ick. whatever that is.
Yeah, well, he'd be a good judge. He'd be very fair, I would imagine.
But he's one example of how many grandchildren that you have?
Grandchildren, 9.
9. And great-grandchildren?
I think 7.
Do you have any great-greats?
Oh, come on.
I don't know. Well,
yet.
I heard tell that on your wedding night when you were 24 years old that you had a son that was born 9 months later. So
well, it takes 9
months. You didn't go to the
months.
sporting goods drawer that night, did you? No.
No, I didn't.
No.
And I'm very pleased that I didn't, because Alan is now almost 70. He's my eldest.
Yes. Well, I can even do the maths on that if your wedding anniversary is today.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, 70 years ago was my marriage on this time at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Oh,
so I'll observe 1 minute silence.
Well, we will be together at 4 o'clock this afternoon. I have been...
Well, what say we get married, and then that would be sort of...
Yes.
That'd be good.
Then I'll get all your money and Tad can't have any of it.
Oh, I think Tad's just writing something on the phone. Yes, he'd be very busy at the moment. Right? Oh, I can almost feel what he's going to say there.
I knew this show was just going to go totally off the rails. It's really on the rails, though, isn't
it amazing? Here we are talking on radio, as we do.
Yes.
And he's listening, and he's actually sending back messages on a phone. It's all very high-tech, isn't it?
Well, not as high-tech as you'd like to think, because another incident occurred for me, and I won't make this a really long story, but my relationship with Optus and my phone, I was speaking at an event a few weeks ago with John Fain, actually, who's quite a well-known ABC presenter. Anyway, he was the MC, I was the keynote. But halfway through this conference, my phone was disconnected by Optus. And I went through that whole process of what can I do. So I actually worked out a way around it, that I used Messenger in front of a McDonald's store that had Wi-Fi, and phoned Rose, my daughter, and got her to sort my life out while my phone was dead for like 12 hours. But it's not rocket science, is it, that Optus should disconnect my phone?
Might have been the CIA.
No, it's just
listening in.
You know what it is? Administration. That's what happened. Back office did not perform their duties. So anyway, that's another one of those stories.
I don't think I'd know if I was disconnected. How do you know that you're disconnected?
Well, yeah, you probably wouldn't, because you never check your phone.
No.
I've been phoning you for days.
No.
You don't pick it up. Unless you see my name going, well, there's that girl again.
Well, you did mention the reason why. You've forgotten, have you? The reason was that I am the silent generation.
Of course, shh, don't tell anyone.
So you couldn't hear me.
I know. You must. I can't even imagine what you were like when you were a little boy, because you are a bit of a joke teller, and I love that, because my son George loves a good dad joke. So every time you tell me a joke, I feed it straight to George, and I know it ends up in the kitchen of Oak Ridge Wines out in the
You're
Yarra
just
Valley.
going to lead in, aren't you? You were just going to lead in to what was the Canary Island? No,
there you go again. This is my show, Ken.
I'm sorry.
This is my program, and you've jumped the gun again.
Oh, no.
You have.
I'm packing up and going home.
No, the other day I was...
Will you marry me at 4 o'clock?
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
will. I baked a cake especially.
Would you have to? I'll make you a jar of jam while you're doing it.
It's got jam in it, boysenberry jam. Anyway, so I was at the supermarket the other day, and I was lining up, and this man who looked a similar age to you, so he was probably at 70. He rocked up behind me and he goes, "Oh, is this spot taken?" I thought, "Oh, here comes a version of Ken Lyons." And I said, "Oh, of course, come in, And so we're having a bit of a joke, and he said, "Oh, sorry, love, I don't mean to be all forward and everything like that and getting in your space." I said, "No, look, we're lined up here at the supermarket. We may as well have a chat." And
were you near the banana counter?
No.
Because that's where you meet. No, haven't you heard that?
No.
No, if you want to pick up a mate,
yes,
whether it's a girl picking up a fella or a fella picking up a girl, you go to the banana counter where they sell the bananas. In you know, that...
Is that metaphor for something? Or?
I don't know. This is what I've heard.
I've never heard.
So if you see somebody hanging around the banana counter, you know that they're looking for somebody.
Well,
you know.
I don't think this was the case, but we started having a bit of a chat. I love a chat.
Good.
With anyone. And he said to me, you probably don't want to talk to an old man like me. And I said, well, first of all, I'm not an ageist, and one of my best friends is 95 almost, so that kind of makes me immune. And I was telling him about you. And then I told him, you'd recently told me the joke about the Canary Islands. Can you please tell that? Without laughing. I've got the giggling Gerties now.
Well, yes, because I've taken an interest in geography lately, and I found out that on the Canary Islands, there's no such thing as a canary. And likewise, on the Virgin Islands, there's no such thing as a canary. Did you know that?
I love it. I love it. So I'm telling this joke to this man in the aisle. He goes, I've got one that's worse. And I thought, he goes, oh, it's a bit rude though. I said, no, come on, tell me. I'll tell it on air, like on Sunday. And so I'm not good at telling jokes, but he said there was this guy who was at the football stadium. He's trying to get fit and everything. And he's like, doing like 1,000 push-ups in the middle of this stadium, and this jogger comes past and goes, hey mate, your girlfriend left half an hour ago.
Listen, I think, you know,
I thought it was pretty funny. But I really enjoyed the chat with this man. It was nice. And
well, it's nice. You know, you can meet people. I know. You and I are both the same.
Yeah.
We go up to people and talk to them.
Yes.
And I've made some wonderful friends. I've got Aviva who's a Chinese girl that got me into this.
Oh,
this
you and your grandchildren, yeah.
A beautiful, no, she's not a grandchild. She's a beautiful lady. She's married.
Yes.
I met her husband.
That's good.
We've been to dinner together and everything. And
in Swing Street.
I met Aviva at a funeral.
Ah.
Yeah, at somebody's funeral. I didn't know too many at the funeral, and I saw this Chinese girl all on her own. So I walked over and had a chat. Yeah. And we became good friends.
Well, part of our conversation about community today, just talk to people. You know, you have no idea, number one, what you're going to learn, and number two, what difference you might make to their day.
True.
And, you know, we don't all get along. Sometimes we have that chemical reaction where you go, oh, no, that's not for me. That's okay. But, you know, sometimes just take that moment to enjoy being in somebody else's company, and when you've had the moment, then you leave. You've
no idea how you can find probably a future friend, a really meaningful friend, by just going up to somebody and talking to them.
Well, you know where I'm going straight after this?
I've got a rough idea.
The banana counter at the supermarket.
Well, you know what?
What?
That's a coincidence. Because it'll be embarrassing because I'll be there as well.
I reckon half the world will be there if they're tuned into this program. Go, oh, had no idea. No wonder I'm single. I just haven't been hanging around the banana counter long enough.
Yes, I mean, me too.
Now, look, given the content of this show so far, there could be some complaints or some feedback at least. If you do have some feedback, we love it. So you can contact me at my email address, which is rae.bonney@3wbc.org.au. You can even phone us here right now at the studio. If you're phoning out of Melbourne, it's 0392854848.
Give us a call.
Yeah, give us a call.
We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, we've got a few minutes.
Yeah. Ted might give us a ring.
Ken, it's not your show. You can't just invite people. I will manage this.
Sleep.
Thank you. And complaints. Phone John Palmer tomorrow. 0392854846. Now, my next show, which is Sunday the 14th.
4848, darling.
4848.
46.
Yeah, no, isn't that the John's?
Oh, yes.
John's?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Here we go again.
Okay, sorry.
Don't worry, Ken. You'll have your show back. You're back on air tomorrow. You on air tomorrow?
Yep.
Yes. What time?
Tomorrow at 1.
Tomorrow at 1. With your show, Here's Health.
The health show tomorrow, yes.
Yes, lucky I'm here to tell you what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm glad you are.
Do you have a special guest?
Not tomorrow.
Okay.
We had to change it because it's a holiday.
Oh, well, it doesn't mean you have to change your show.
I didn't. She did.
Oh, right, she, who will remain nameless.
I'm trying to remember who it is, actually, but someone very important.
Tune in for a surprise tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and you'll hear Ken probably talking to himself. He might even be reminiscing about his Sunday.
No, I don't reminisce on a Monday.
guest appearance on my show.
No, it should be interesting. I think health is very important. We want everyone to be well.
Do we?
Of course we do.
Oh.
Yeah, including you.
I know. Well, look, back to where I was about my next show. On Sunday the 14th of April, I'm speaking with Jeremy McVean, and Jeremy and I met a number of years ago when I was doing a project with Movember, a pre-campaign. I wrote there and delivered their internal suicide prevention program. And anyway, Jeremy is one of the founders of what is now known as the Fatherhood, and it's the new destination for Australian dads to help them navigate through the hot mess of having kids, where they're living the best lives as men at the same time. So the organisation, they're there as dads, for dads. And Jeremy and co-founders Andrew McCutcheon and Luke Benedictus believe that becoming a father is one of the greatest opportunities a man can get, but they're also aware that fatherhood does change you and it changes everything. The problem, these days, the portrayal of dads hasn't changed with the rest of the world, and there's no modern father in the media that we actually like. You got the couch potato, the sap, the buffoon, and I think that we probably need to change these stereotypes around. I totally agree with that. But the Fatherhood does exist to showcase men as fathers who are doing it their way and doing it really, really well. And there are times when anyone, men and women, are kicking goals, mums and dads are kicking goals, and there are times when we just need to have each other's backs, and that's what the Fatherhood is all about. So I'm looking forward to catching up with Jeremy on here. He's a great speaker as well.
That sounds great. It's a great privilege to be a father.
Well, it kind of, I think it's another great way to end the show with you to talk about your experience as a dad, because probably anyone that's listening in has noticed that Ken is very far from conventional.
Yes,
does that extend to your fathering or your parenting?
Well, I used to work 7 days a week, and therefore I didn't sort of have so much to do with the upbringing of the children, whereas Jill did. She was a home girl, although she worked part-time on occasions, and she was a hairdresser. And, of course, she gave up hairdressing when we got married because she had her own salon.
Because if you got to visit the sport equipment drawer on your wedding night.
Yeah, well, we had a baby, you see, to look after.
Happens, doesn't it?
Eh?
It happens.
Well, yes, and I think it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And so, yes, I think mainly I was a bit unconventional. But then again, I was very easy that I wasn't, heavy on the kids because they...
With the belt?
No, I never did that. Only time I ever hit any of the kids was my daughter Sandy, who was too much like me, I think. Because when we were in London, she was 14 and she had a boyfriend at 14, which was a bit of a worry. And then she got a car pulled up opposite, full of young fellas, and she got in and went. Now, we were very concerned about that because we didn't know whether she knew them or not.
Jack the Ripper.
She would have known them, of course. But anyway, we didn't know that at the time. So we got the police looking for her. And they even put a policeman in the house with us to sit there with his phone and everything to keep in contact. They did a wonderful job. She came back at 6 o'clock in the morning, got dropped off. She'd been at a nightclub. This is 14. Jeez. At a nightclub. And her excuse was that she that she wasn't. They weren't allowed to leave until 6 o'clock.
Right, lockdown. All I can say, Ken, is chip off old block.
Yeah, she was, I'm afraid.
Sounds like to me.
Well, I gave her a smack on the bum. I did, and because I was so upset at the fact that we didn't know.
Yeah.
And she was apologetic because she said, no, I knew them. Of course, they were all school friends.
Yes.
And everything, and older than her. But
pretty gutsy, though. Gutsy move by Sandy. Now, I have a question for you. You know, Tad has sung your praises via Messenger. You're inspirational and all that jazz. What would your kids say you? How would your kids describe you as a father?
Oh, what a good question. How would I know that? I'd have to ask them personally how they describe me.
How do you think they would describe you?
I think I was... how would they describe me? Weird, probably.
I love it. That is perfect. Perfect.
I think that's the only word I can think of offhand.
You know, I was saying to Rory the other morning when I've had quite a busy work schedule, which is not unusual for me, and feeling quite challenged with my health. I looked at Rory and said, I think I'm just going to quit everything and just become a metro trains ticket looker, whatever they do. And he looked at me and just went, nah. He said, I really like having a weird mum.
Oh, well, you and I are weird.
Yes. So that's. I took that as a compliment. I mean, there was a bit more to the conversation.
I would have too.
Yes.
I think being weird has its good points.
Yes, I'd say
we're different. We're not run of the mill.
No. We shirk mediocrity or we shirk convention, which can sometimes land us in.
And the good thing is, of course, that we can talk about that.
Yes.
On radio, where people are listening in strange parts of the world. We've had, listeners in Antarctica.
Wow.
No, that wasn't Antarctica. It was...
somewhere cold.
What's the
Mount
place
Buller.
North of America, right up the top?
North America.
Alaska.
Oh, okay.
Alaska.
Yes.
That's right. Wasn't Antarctica.
Yes.
Only the penguins listen to us there.
The penguins. Well, I just also want to remind, before we lose time, for this reminder, if any of our discussions today have brought up uncomfortable feelings for people, please remember there is help, and a few options for further support can be Lifeline is very, very good. That's 131114. Suicide callback service is 1300 659 467. Of course, emergency services is 000. If it feels like an emergency, it probably is an emergency, and you won't get into trouble for that. So,
well, can I just say this, that the work that you do is so very important, and, we hear about people suiciding, taking their lives, and there's usually very good reason for it. I've had two friends of mine who actually did take their own lives. And I think the work that you do is so important. So I wish that you, and hope that you keep going, doing it for a long time yet, because you help, really personally help a lot of people.
Well, thank you very much, Ken. That's very kind of you to say so. And, I'm very grateful for the work that I'm able to do, and that my purpose is so clear, because that really helps with living, is when you've got purpose.
And I think the thing is too that you've got to keep it at arm's length. You mustn't get emotionally involved, and that must be a very difficult thing to do.
Well, it's the way people in my profession, we take training seriously, and that's part of training is that the being objective at all times. And there are some particular cases where I'm very mindful that I have to be probably extra vigilant with myself to not. And losing my phone the other day, that was the first thought was, oh wow.
But you handle that very professionally.
Well, there was just people that may have been relying on me to manage, but in any case, it all worked out. So we are going to go to our final song, which always reminds me of you because there was one time I was on air with you and you played it, and it reminds me of my beautiful daughter Rose.
And she is beautiful.
She is. Do you know she's being promoted to a law clerk?
Very good. Congratulations,
really cool. Yes.
Rose.
She's actually very, very good. She works in the legal profession, and I don't mind bragging about my kids, but she's very, very smart, and she is the person that I rely on most in the world, and I know she's not listening in, but I wanted to thank her anyway because she's always there for me.
Daughters are always very special. We're getting a call in. Can you take a call? Take it live because it's probably somebody we know.
Well, we'll have to go to a song at the same time because we do have to wrap the show. So this song is Edison Lighthouse and it's called Love Grows. Thank you for coming on the show. You're amazing. And
thank you very much. I've really, really enjoyed it. And it's always lovely being in the same studio as you and opposite mics. Terrific.
There you go. And remember, have a conversation with somebody in a supermarket line.